Today we're diving into an epic saga, a tale of myths, legends, knights, lightning, and pure metal. We're talking Norse gods, Greek heroes, and above all, true heavy metal. Who are we talking about? Hit the intro. Welcome back to the Living Room Mosh Pit. Today's video was, unfortunately, triggered by some heavy news. The recent passing of MANOWAR's legendary guitarist and co-founder, Ross the Boss. Honestly, we've been dying to talk about MANOWAR for ages. We dropped their name in our 2026 gigs video, but man, we really hoped we'd be covering them under happier circumstances. Let's kick things off with the name. MANOWAR comes from two things: an old-school English term for a heavily armed sailing warship, or literally just a man of war. Badass either way. The madness begins in 1980 in Auburn, New York. Future bass wizard Joey DeMeo was working as a bass tech and pyro guy for Black Sabbath on the Heaven and Hell tour. Enter Ross the Boss, shredding for Sabbath's opening act, Shakin' Street. Side note, Ross used to be in the proto-punk band The Dictators, just like Twisted Sister's Mark Mendoza. Joey and Ross get to talking and realize they're on the exact same wavelength. Tour ends, they quit their gigs, become blood brothers, and form the band. To round out the lineup, DeMeo brings in his old school buddy Eric Adams on vocals, with Carl Kennedy on drums. They start scraping together cash playing covers in dive bars until they drop their first demo in '81. Kennedy burns out from the live shows and bails, making way for Donnie Hamzik. Thanks to that demo, they score a deal with Liberty Records. Buckle up, because this is where the great label-hopping circus begins. Liberty breathes down their necks for tracks, and in 1982, Battle Hymns drops. It's a massive hit. Aggressive tone and Eric Adams showing off an absolutely insane vocal range. Oh, and here's a wild piece of trivia. For the track Dark Avenger, they got legendary Hollywood actor and director Orson Welles to do the voiceover. Keep that giant of cinema in mind. He'll be back. Next thing you know, they're out on tour opening for Ted Nugent. But the Nuge kicks them off the bill almost instantly. Why? Because they were totally stealing the spotlight, and the crowd was eating it up. So they set up their own tour. But city after city complains because their amps are cranked to ungodly levels. They're gaining massive traction in the States and building an army in Europe. By the end of the run, Hamzik pieces out from the stress, and in comes Scott Columbus. 1982. They ditch Liberty and jump to Music for Nations, the same label dealing with Metallica, Slayer, and Megadeth. They hit the studio intending to record an EP featuring Orson Welles again, but they write so many bangers that it turns into their second full-length album, Into Glory Ride. It sells like crazy and goes down as a heavy metal milestone. War-torn atmospheres, fantasy, and mythology, this was the birth of true epic metal. Their fan base explodes, especially in the UK. A massive British tour gets planned, but the manager's family issues force them to cancel. To make it up to the British fans, they record their next record, Hail to England, 1984, in just 6 days. Faster, heavier, and completely unhinged. They hit the road for the Spectacle of Might tour, starting as the opening act for Merciful Fate. But the crowds go so absolutely feral for MANOWAR that the tour gets flipped mid-run, making them the headliners. Riding that high, they hit the studio and, surprise, they change labels again. They sign with 10 Records and, a mere 10 months later, drop Sign of the Hammer. Another massive hit, a 2-year world tour, and then a quick breather in '86. 1987 rolls around. Guess what? New label. They jump to Atlantic Records and drop Fighting the World. This is their massive mainstream breakthrough, even though some critics start whining that the mythology themes are getting repetitive. Then comes 1988. Miraculously staying on the same label, they unleash their absolute masterpiece, Kings of Metal. It becomes their highest-selling record ever. Tracks like Heart of Steel, Kings of Metal, and Hail and Kill become immortal anthems. But with mainstream success comes heavy fire. Feminists rip into the track Pleasure Slave for the lyric Woman Be My Slave. Meanwhile, Blood of the Kings gets accused of being a nod to Nazism because of the line Back to the Glory of Germany, which the band insists was literally just a shout-out to their rabid German fan base. People even tried to cancel their eagle logo, completely ignoring that it was inspired by Zeus, the Roman Empire, and Harley Davidson. They even got flack for praising Richard Wagner, who the band considers the true creator of heavy metal. Oh, and the cherry on top? In 2008, Guitar World ranked Sting of the Bumblebee as the 9th worst guitar solo of all time. Ouch. Ignoring the haters, they embark on a grueling 3-year world tour. But the road takes its toll, and Ross the Boss announces he's stepping down to start a blues rock project. Enter David Shankle, handpicked out of 150 shredders. Soon after, Scott Columbus leaves too. The official story is that he needed to care for his sick son. But in 2010, Columbus himself debunked this, hinting at darker, unresolved issues behind the scenes. Before leaving, Scott handpicks his own replacement, Kenny "Rhino" Edwards. The year is 1991, maybe 92. Legendary drummer Scott Columbus has to temporarily step away. To track their 7th album, The Triumph of Steel, the band brings in Kenny Edwards, instantly rechristened Rhino. But hey, this is MANOWAR. You don't just stroll into the rehearsal room, shake a few hands, and sit behind the kit. You need a blood-in, blood-out initiation. To prove his die-hard, unconditional loyalty to the true metal cause, and to burn the bridge to his past musical life, Rhino faces an extreme ultimatum. He has to literally set his old drum kit on fire. And the wildest part? They actually caught this bonfire on tape. But trying to watch that footage today? Good luck. It's the ultimate holy grail. It practically only exists on a dusty VHS tape buried inside the 1993 limited edition Secrets of Steel box set. The band's copyright cops are brutal. Anytime a fan tries to upload the clip to YouTube, it gets nuked in record time. Here's a little insider secret though. Anyone lucky enough to actually track down that rare footage always points out one thing. The look on Rhino's face as he watches his beloved drums burn to ash? Yeah, he didn't exactly look thrilled. But hey, the baptism of fire was done. With the new blood, they released The Triumph of Steel in '92. This record is legendary for featuring a massive 28-minute suite inspired by the Iliad, Achilles' agony and ecstasy in 8 parts. Fun fact, researchers at the University of Bologna actually analyzed the track and praised its mind-blowing historical accuracy to Homer's original text. 2 years of touring later, their contract with Atlantic expires. Shocker! Time for a new label. They sign with Geffen. In '93, Shankle leaves, Karl Logan joins the fold, and unexpectedly, Scott Columbus returns, booting Rhino out. Fast forward past a few compilations, and we hit 1996's Louder Than Hell. It gave us massive heavy hitters like Brothers of Metal, Courage, and Number One. Critics trashed it for being too simplistic. Andre Matos of Angra even called it metal for kids. Did MANOWAR care? Not a chance. They toured relentlessly, dropped live albums and their infamous Hell on Earth DVD. By '99, they're doing the Monsters of the Millennium Tour in Sweden, alongside Motorhead and Dio. 6 years later, in 2002, they drop Warriors of the World. Critics claim they're out of ideas, stuck in their true metal fanaticism. Others praise the obsessive production quality. Regardless, the album crushes it. It features Warriors of the World United, House of Death, and an insane tribute to Italy. A heavy metal cover of Puccini's Nessun Dorma, debuted live in Milan. Finally, in 2003, Joey DeMaio gets smart and founds his own label, Magic Circle Music. The label-hopping circus is over. Under this banner, they drop the King of Kings demo, the Sons of Odin EP, and host the legendary Earthshaker Fest, where they play alongside a full orchestra and bring every single former band member on stage. We're talking Battle Hymn played with 3 guitars and 3 drum kits. In 2007, they go full symphonic with Gods of War. In 2010, they re-record their debut as Battle Hymns 2011. Columbus officially leaves again, tragically passing away shortly after at just 54, and Hamzik returns. Then we hit the dark spot of 2018. Karl Logan gets busted in North Carolina for possession of child porn. The band immediately kicks him to the curb, as they damn well should, and brings in E.V. Martel. Alright, history lesson over. Let's get technical. MANOWAR literally invented epic metal. It's a subgenre born between the late 70s and 80s, where epic became a classification for themes of mythology, history, and fantasy. MANOWAR draws heavily from the Iliad and Norse lore, Thor, Odin, Valhalla. This vibe explodes on their album covers, painted by Ken Kelly, the same guy who did Conan the Barbarian and Kiss covers. These artworks are the physical embodiment of true heavy metal. Let's break down the aesthetic. First, the faceless warrior. Hyper-muscular, looking like a Viking straight out of hell. His face is usually shadowed so the fan can project themselves into the art. You are the warrior. Second, the weapons. Broadswords, battle axes, skulls, and slaughtered demons. Third, the testosterone. It's an 80s pulp fantasy cliché of hypermasculinity, featuring scantily clad women in submission. Fourth, the symbols. Eagles, fire, lightning. And finally, biker culture. Steeds are replaced by roaring Harley-Davidsons. It's not about realism, it's about brotherhood in battle. And we have to talk about their true heavy metal crusade. They crowned themselves the sole defenders of uncontaminated metal. Joey DeMeo famously ranted, "True metal is not watered down. It hasn't wimped out. It's 100% from the heart. We don't play radio bullshit." This led to the infamous Joey's speeches during live gigs, where he'd verbally slaughter other bands. They only respected acts like Venom, Celtic Frost, Merciful Fate, and Immortal. DeMeo loved extreme metal but absolutely despised nu metal, calling it pure shit. They roasted Twisted Sister and the entire LA glam scene like Motley Crue and Poison, branding them false metal. In their own words, "Other bands play, MANOWAR kill." They didn't even spare Metallica. After the Black Album blew up, MANOWAR accused them of selling out to MTV. When asked if Metallica inspired him, DeMeo fired back, "Why would they? I don't play country music." Let's hit some quick-fire trivia. The Hell on Earth DVDs, infamous for their extreme backstage footage. DeMeo would bring dozens of girls backstage to celebrate metal in borderline soft porn scenes. Definitely problematic by today's standards, but back then it was just the kings of metal lifestyle. DeMeo's bass. It's a heavily modified Rickenbacker with ultra-thin strings, played like a lead guitar through massive distortion. It creates that frantic, clanking, iconic sound. The volume records. MANOWAR was officially the loudest band in the world, beating Motorhead with a deafening 139 decibels in 2008. Guinness eventually scrapped the category because they didn't want fans going deaf. Back in '84, their volume literally made plaster fall from venue ceilings. Hellfest 2019. They were booked to headline but straight up walked out. Rumor has it they demanded impossible soundcheck times and wanted to bypass France's strict decibel limits. We also have to mention Christopher Lee. Orson Welles wasn't their only Hollywood hookup. They collaborated with the legendary actor behind Saruman and Dracula, who was a massive fan and an opera singer himself. Now let's close the circle and go back to where we started, Ross the Boss. The '88 split was billed as friendly, but recent interviews revealed DeMeo forced him out. Joey wanted total control and polished symphonic perfection. Ross was raw, punk, and entirely unpredictable. Ross himself admitted, "Joey told me it was time for me to go." The band had become a dictatorship, and Ross wasn't going to just be an employee. Before we wrap, here are the absolute must-listen anthems if you want to understand MANOWAR. Brothers of Metal, the ultimate tribute to their fans, the MANOWarriors. The gods made heavy metal, cementing their belief that heavy metal is a literal gift from the gods. Number 1. Pure, unapologetic arrogance. They play to win, no compromises. Carry On, their melodic, epic side, an anthem of resilience. All Men Play on 10, a massive middle finger to posers, celebrating the analog power of cranking the volume knob to 10. Hail and Kill, the ultimate battle anthem. And the entire Gods of War album, the peak of their symphonic, mythological grandeur. We're closing this journey by cranking the volume to 11 for Ross the Boss. He's the one who gave MANOWAR that dirty, barbaric rock and roll soul that no technical shredder after him could ever replicate. We've lost a piece of history, but as they say, warriors of the world never die. If you dug this video, drop a comment with your favorite Ross-era album, or stay completely silent like a false metal poser. We'll see you in the next mosh pit, and always remember, born to lose, live to win.